Lucie, you cover unfolding European legislation at Policy Associate at Access Now Brussels. According to you, are data and privacy protection across the European Union a major challenge posed to the protection and infringes on the fundamental rights of anyone?
Yes, definitely. There's a lot going on in terms of EU legislation, and so what we try to do at the Brussels level is really work on the EU legislative files, like the General Data Protection Regulation that was approved last year. We don't work on national levels, which is a shame, but we can only cover so much, but that's really where the disparity emerges. And so the way that states implement the frameworks that are passed in the European Union and the way that it works on a national level is in the end what the end user experiences, right? So we try to push for frameworks and protections that translate really well into national legislation. But it's up to the national legislators to really take the initiative and make sure that the companies within the country, as well as businesses, industry, implement those frameworks in a good way. Most recently, in terms of cybersecurity, we had the NIS directive, which is supposed to help information sharing, right? But that's a very small fragment of what we should be seeing in terms of cybersecurity for end users. For us, one of the big factors that remains unaddressed at the European level and largely at the national level is the issue of digital security, and really talking about how to protect the end users, how to make the communication tools that real people use really privacy respectful, really protective, how to have encryption, for instance, on emails by default, so people have this fundamental security. And it's something that legislators kind of teeter around, because for them, for law enforcement, there's this push that these kinds of vulnerabilities are what enables them to do their job. But fundamentally, we can talk about, the cybersecurity of industries and large businesses. But if we're not talking about the end users, then we're missing a really fundamental part in our legislation.
That is true. Andrus Ansip, the European Commission Vice President for the Digital Single Market, stated that today 72% of end users, of internet users, worry that they are being asked too many questions, too many personal data online. Do you believe that national cybersecurity strategies can be enhanced and reinforced without increasing the mistrust of people toward data retention?
Yes, well, data retention and data collection in general is a big concern. And Andrus Ansip, I think he's very sensitive to these issues, which is very good for a commissioner. He's openly supported, the need for encryption in our communications and anonymity online, which is a terrific step. The issue we have is, in digital security, the things that we need is really data minimization to begin with, privacy by design, and have these sort of concepts really embedded in our technologies by default. Currently, that's not the practice, because a lot of technologies and a lot of industry currently is built on data collection, on data analysis, and the resale of data. Big data is a big business. And so unfortunately, we're seeing this, and now there are some misguided data retention policies, of course, because for law enforcement, it's a gold mine. If we have stored personal communications of people for months, it makes investigations much easier than traditional conversations. If you're not there to hear it, what I'm saying, you will not hear it. With the increase of technology in our lives, these conversations become increasingly recorded. I think the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, that we have approved is going to go a really long way in protecting people's data. It's very specific about the protection of personal data, and it's also very specific about using public data in order to profile people and using those very detailed, because you can gain a lot even from metadata analysis about person's patterns of what they do. It's very specific in saying that that is also not a good practice. So I think we're getting there, but people are concerned. And currently we have an emerging legislation called the e-privacy directive, which is going to be discussed this fall. It should be presented, I believe, in October or November. And that's going to talk about, the security of the online communications world. So kind of supplementary to the GDPR. And the way that that whole discussion is going to go is really going to lead the charge in what users can expect in terms of privacy online. You know, in terms of our communication services going to be required to provide encryption, what is going to be lawful access, what is that process going to look like. So that's something we're looking forward to, and so far it's been very controversial. If you do a quick Google search on e-privacy, there's a lot of controversy that comes up. So
It is a lot of controversy and discussions, and Krakow has become a place where we are meeting different spheres, like public, private, and civilian sphere to discuss the cybersecurity challenges. How do you find this conference? What do you think about meetings like that?
I think it's really important. Anywhere where we engage in discourse and conversations, only good things can come, right? For me, one of the fundamentals is really engaging. You know, it's a different conversation when states talk to industry, and it's a very different conversation when states talk to individuals, to human rights groups, to civil society. And a lot of the times, you know, that's underrepresented. And from my experience, this conference has been really good at communicating with me, and they have been very good at talking to me about what we want to present here, how we want to steer the conversation, and about other NGOs they could bring on board. So I think that's a really great step. Europol and others have also made the effort recently to engage with civil society. So the more we have these conversations and the more people can say what really matters to them in these fora, that's great. So it's, you know, forums like this are the best way to communicate about policy.
Thank you very much. I hope to see you next year during the CyberSec 2017.
Thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you.